From WXCI 91.7 in Danbury, this is Public Reading Club, a radio program dedicated to discussions about books, writing, reading with writers and book people. Your host is Matt Caputo.
What we have is a nice gathering of friends for our latest edition of Public Reading Club. It's really great. It's an honor for me. I'm Matt Caputo, the host of Public Reading Club, here with our engineer, Patrick Frenette. It's an honor to host Michael Ledwidge here at WXCI on the campus of Western Connecticut State University. He's a prolific author. Best way to introduce him is that he's a Bronx native and a Manhattan College graduate, a best-selling co-author of over a dozen books with James Patterson. In 2020, he released his first solo novel since 1999, which brought readers Michael Gannon and a few other one-off novels. And he's here today to talk about his latest one-off novel, The Girl in the Vault, that is available everywhere now from Hanover Square Press. It's a fantastic read along the lines of anything you'd get from the best of what you'd get from a collaborator of James Patterson. It is a heist story with a female lead protagonist. I enjoyed it. I read it sometime earlier this year, and now it's available for the public to read. And Mike wanted to come back. We had so much fun talking on our first visit together. I think that was episode 9. And we just had so much fun talking. And he wanted to come back right around the time the new book came out, and I was more than happy to have him here in the studio with us. So really, without further ado, I present to you our latest conversation with prolific novelist Michael Ledwidge, who also lives right here in Connecticut, in Avon. And he's been up here for a while now, and it's great to connect my two worlds of kind of being an old school New York City type of person that now lives in Connecticut. So it's great to have, for episode 13, Michael Ledwidge is back. He was actually with us for episode 7. So if you go back and you want to listen to the first episode, we do touch on a number of the same things, but we get in a little more in depth about his writing processes and his career along the way, and obviously a lot about the new book. So Michael Ledwidge is our guest for Public Reading Club. I'm Matt Caputo, your host, and I'll see you again at the bottom of the show. We are here at WXCI with a very special guest. He's probably the first guest to ever want to come back on the show and spend more time with me again. He is the prolific novelist Michael Ledwidge. He has over 20 novels published. He was a longtime collaborator with James Patterson. His brand new novel is called The Girl in the Vault. It's already making some noise. We had a fantastic, I guess you would say, signing and author interaction at the bookshops at the Summit here in Danbury recently. I'd like to thank everybody who, just personally nice to see people supporting books in Danbury. The shop itself is fantastic, and they are going to be moving downstairs early in 2024, so it's going to be even more accessible. That's a great bookstore. They have new and used books. But it was great to see you, Mike. It's really an honor to have you want to come back on the show. I enjoy your work so much. We're kind of in the takeoff phases of The Girl in the Vault, huh?
Right. Yes. Thanks so much for having me back, Matt. Yeah, it's this is a really cool noir-ish sort of. It's a crime novel. If you like The Devil Wears Prada. It's like The Devil Wears Prada, but there's a heist in it. Because it's about a young girl out of college who's from Kentucky. Her name is Faye. And Faye comes up to New York because she gets this really great Wall Street internship. And she's a shoo-in for this job, so she thinks, because she's the best one there. And so her dream life is about to start, but of course there's a glitch, and she gets betrayed by her bosses, and she's real desperate. So like what we see in these things, and then what happens is that she decides that she's going to leave with a little bit. She's going to take a unofficial severance package with her, and in the form of a heist.
Wow.
Of the investment bank where she works, and what I love about it, one of the greatest things that I really like about noir, there's great heist movies and stuff, but one of the greatest noirs, one of my favorite ones is Double Indemnity.
Yeah, great one.
And what I like so much about it is that in the middle of the movie is this perfect murder. So there's kind of this perfect crime kind of aspect to this heist, where people reading it think you plausibly might be able to get away with this, and so that's kind of fun, and people are liking it so far. So
Mike, I know you have a few children, and I know that you have a daughter, right?
Yes,
and
2 daughters,
2 daughters and a son,
and
I think as a writer and an artist, obviously you're pulling things from the world you live in. How much of this young female character was actually pulled kind of from your children's lives or their friends or?
Yeah, and with this one, it's actually a lot of the internship aspect of it, and the Wall Street job aspect of it actually came from my son. He actually works for an investment bank, and he went through this internship, and it was kind of it was a kind of big ordeal, an intense thing, and he didn't know if he was going to get the job. And he had to move to a different city, and he had to get an apartment. And so there's a big kind of risk thing in it. And there's like a dozen people, and only 2 people got the job. Luckily, he got the job. But some people don't get the job. So that was one aspect of it, the whole kind of desperation. What if somebody was like on their final kind of dime here to try to, who are banking on something, and then they don't get it, and they're very desperate and what have you. And it's actually him and his wife, because his wife also works at this investment bank, and so it was both of them, and speaking to my daughter-in-law.
That's interesting, because I kind of figured that's where you were pulling from. I was like, I bet you Mike's children are around this age or have gone through these stages a bit, and you were pulling from that.
Yep.
It's very interesting because we obviously some of our listeners will remember you from episode 7, I believe it was, when you came on and you were here with us. But you also have Beach Wedding, which is a similar kind of standalone novel, possibly more geared towards a female audience. We've talked about how much of that was pulled from your life. Did you have a family wedding out east that led to that?
The Beach Wedding. The Hamptons part of it was I was familiar with the Hamptons because we used to, when I was in college, me and a bunch of my crazy friends actually rented out a house in Hampton Bays. So I spent I think 3 summers out there. So that I was familiar with the kind of they call it Hampton Bays the poor man's Hamptons because it's nearby to Southampton, all these really rich places. But so I got that from that, and in Beach Wedding. That was the main part of that aspect of it was I was familiar with the area, and when I was in college, so all that kind of stuff is there. But the other parts of the book with the rich people in the Hamptons and the beach, and actually the title Beach Wedding came from. James Patterson has a bunch of books with the beach in the title. He did Beach Road, Beach House, and other ones. And so when I first started, because I started to write that a long time ago, originally I was going to try to do it as a James Patterson-esque addition to the whole beach thing. Yeah.
There's a different tone and a pace to that one than your work with Patterson for sure.
Yeah.
A little bit different.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about the new book. You've just released it. How does it work with you with these one-offs? Like, do you have this idea for a long time? Is this something that mostly lives in your head? Are you a big note taker and kind of filer awayer?
Right. The original, I was saying before about the heist itself was the germ of the idea for the novel. Was basically I got that off a podcast. I was listening to a podcast. I forget the name of it, but it was a guy. He was talking about how he used to work in an investment bank, and he said that there was basically a large sum of money in cash that was not 20 feet from his desk in a closet, and several $1 million in cash. And what it was is that it was kidnapping insurance.
Wow.
For the VIP investors. And so once I heard that, because I'd never heard that before.
Very interesting.
Yeah, because I had heard before, because there's a movie called, what's the name of it? With the Russell Crowe, where he plays a kidnapping negotiator.
Yeah.
Proof of Life.
Yes.
So where they talk about kidnapping insurance in that, but this was another aspect of it, and the fact that this guy's working there, he's
different
working
angle, yeah.
a different angle, and that he actually is sitting in an office with his $10 million in the closet. So I said to myself, okay, there's a noir novel right there.
Absolutely.
How does he get the $10 million out of the closet and get away with it?
It's really amazing because people don't actually know how common like kidnapping attempts are on rich people. There was a guy from Connecticut here. It's a famous case. His name is Eddie Lampert. He was kidnapped by some guys that used to work for him, and they drove him around, I think, for a couple of days, tried to scare him and all this type of thing.
Sure.
But so, Mike, what I want to ask you is when I heard you say the other day at the bookstore, a buddy of yours, I think, asked you how long it would take you to write a novel, and you thought for a second, and you said, could do it in a month, easy. How long did it take you to write this one?
This one, I wrote the first, say, like 75 pages. I wrote, and then maybe that took a couple of months or something, and it sat there for about a year. And I did something. I was working on something else, and then I went back to it, and I just picked it back up again, and I just got in the groove, and I literally wrote 250 words or whatever, the 2/3 of it in like 3 weeks.
Wow.
I cranked this one out. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because I kind of got into the groove of the whole thing. Like, because there was a little bit of a glitch where I kind of, because usually sometimes if I stop writing, there's usually maybe there's something a little bit maybe wrong with the outline that I'm not kind of completely confident in or whatever. And but with this one, once I kind of went back to it and took another look at it, it just started to flow. The whole rest of the story really came out a lot very quickly. And and I was really kind of jazzed about the whole thing because I thought it came out quite well.
You know what I wanted to ask you is when you write those first 75 pages, and this is a general question about just kind of how your career works at this point, Mike. When you write those 75 pages, is that something that you kind of send out on spec to your agent, or is that just in your drawer ready to be continued?
With this one, yeah, you know what it is? It's like sometimes I'll come up with an idea, and I'll start banging it around a little bit, and I'll write like let's say the first 2 or 3 chapters of it, and if I like it, maybe I'll leave it down for a week or two, and I'll go back and take another look at it. And if I read it and go, yeah, this works. This if I feel that there's some life in it, then I'll just hit it. Yeah, I don't have to consult with anybody about whether I'm going to sell it or what I'm going to do with it. If it's more about if I'm confident in is this work and is this good writing? Is this story taking off?
I think I've asked you this before, but just kind of to put in perspective for maybe some of the listeners in our MFA program and stuff, you're at a point now at 23 novels. When you pitch a book like The Girl in the Vault, does a 30-page book proposal come with it, or is this? Are you sometimes just sending an email with your synopsis?
Right. With this one, this was actually. It was part of a contract that I had signed. It was like a multiple book contract,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, one standalone, and then because I have this Gannon series that I'm working on.
Yeah.
So it was like a
I personally love.
You like the Gannon? So yeah, so it was 2 Gannon books plus a standalone. So this was the standalone's up to me to kind of come up with. So
just out of curiosity, for technical perspective, when you sign a contract with that, is there a probably changeable, but I mean, is there a blurb about what that standalone may be, or is it just general? You have to come up with a standalone at some point.
With this, there was, you know what? I think I signed the contract, but then very soon afterwards, they asked for like a little synopsis of it. Yeah,
yeah, that's interesting because I've heard.
But since I was with my publisher, I mean, this is the 6th novel that I've finished with them, the most recent one I just did. So they were confident, like, yeah, if I say I'm going to do it, I'm consistent, I'm coming up with it. So, I think that, it's, if you have a track record that you come through, they're more willing to accept, okay, he's going to come up with a standalone. They don't have to know
the whole thing right up front.
Right.
Yeah. Have you, just out of curiosity's sake, as a kind of a technical perspective of your writing, have you ever started a book and stopped in the middle and just not maybe given up or said, this isn't going to work, let's try something else?
Not in a long, long time because I outline. I won't kind of start it until if I know, okay, this is a novel. I have enough of an idea of blowing this out into a novel. I won't even start before I have the full idea, or a ballpark of how this is going. I'm going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end to a 450 page book. So yeah, I have to have the kind of the outline in my head. But like I was saying before, a couple of times, like I said, when I heard this idea about the kidnapping insurance money, I knew for a fact that it was a novel, like in 2 seconds. I said, first of all, I know because I've done this before.
It seems
instinctually,
right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, instinctually, I can definitely make this into a novel. I don't know how, but I know that I can. And I also wrote another novel in 2007 called The Quickie with Patterson.
Yes.
And the same exact thing happened, where I came up with the kernel of the idea, and I knew right away, like bing, 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 bing. In 2 seconds, I had the whole thing down because of just from the kernel of this idea of whatever it is, where you can just kind of, that there's enough, this situation is so pregnant with possibilities that it's going to be able to be blown out into a full-blown novel.
Let me ask you something. You've been doing this a while. It seems like this is a big rollout for you, this book. It seems like, I hate to say I don't know how often you went out and promoted books before. I definitely wasn't living in this area long enough to know how long you came out locally. But you feel like you're out kind of promoting this a little heavier?
It's funny. Not really.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth. Because like the book event that we did here in Danbury with at the Smith Shop.
Yeah.
That was great in the sense that was a personal thing because the owner, Kevin, and I actually went to high school with them.
Yes.
And he was nice enough to contact me, and he sent me a nice email, and he said, "Oh, I'm down here in Danbury. So it's only an hour away from my house, whatever. Would I want to come down and do a signing?" So I said, "Yeah, absolutely for him. Yeah, definitely for him." And it was a lot of fun. I mean, hanging out with them and reminiscing about being at Mount St. Michael in the Bronx and everything else. And so for him, yeah, I said definitely. Again, I've even said to you, Matt, I like talking to you. In the sense that you're obviously really kind of into crime fiction, all the New York writers.
Yeah.
Like you're one of the things when you invited me to come on, I saw the lineup of your writers like Peter Blauner and Lawrence Block especially. I mean, he's my hero. This guy. So you're into it. So yeah, I talking to you is fun.
No, I noticed that. You know what it is, and not to knock or any other people that have interviewed you, but I just don't know if people have interviewed in the past know enough of your work.
Right.
You know what
exactly.
I mean? To really have a discussion.
You're
with
into
you.
it. You're a New York crime
I know you're
expert.
Yeah, I mean, if there's 23, I think I'm probably up around 16 or 17. So I think that's pretty fair.
Right.
Mike, but that's something I also really wanted to ask you about. We talk a lot about daily writing here, weekly writing here in the MFA program, and then the other undergraduate programs, I'm sure. How much of, for you, a guy who's pumped out, how much of the pressure of deadline do you put on yourself? In just a sense, like, is it something that you sweat over at times? Is it stuff that you can, after years of this, you're pretty even on your deadlines? Or
like anything else, you usually start to pick it up the closer you get to the deadline, right? A little bit of pressure is kind of gets you up out of bed earlier in the morning, but at this point, it's really about coming up with. You want to come up with that great idea that you're really kind of psyched about, and like I said before, to outline things and to really know where you're going. For me, at this point, is what really makes it. So I got to get that outline down, but once I kind of really get it down to where it's like I really know where I'm going, I just take off and I go really quick through it. You know,
I'm not going to mention anybody by name, but I really think that some of the people in our program here, again, I'm not going to say I don't want to, but I don't. You know, right now I'm working on a nonfiction thing. I don't spend the time on the type of, let's say, commercial fiction writing that you do, that Peter Blauner does, that I would love to try more of. But I can tell you that I think even with the success that you have had and the absolutely, infinite machine that James Patterson has set up through this process of outlining and kind of working with other writers, I mean, it just goes to show you how important I don't always stick to as much as I like, but I do always have some type of vague outline, even if that outline is just on a piece of paper next to me.
Right.
And again, at times it's been a whole legal pad, and at times it's been as simple as just a piece of paper. But I really think that some of the writers in our program would benefit even from hearing somebody like you talk about the benefits of outlining, because I am at a point, I am in my third semester of what we call the online multi-genre workshop here at Western Connecticut. And I can tell you that people have good ideas. They have nice turns of phrase. Sometimes it just doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. And I think that comes from a lack of structure and a lack of real outlining. You know, it's instead of having that mark that you're trying to sprint to with an outline, they kind of have a story that they're trying to build without maybe maybe the proper equipment, I guess you would say, or even the light on the hard hat.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you have to see where you're going.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at because it's funny because again, I started out like everybody else, you know, reading like all the advice books about writing, screenplay by Sid Field, and then you read, you know, Aristotle's stuff about drama and Edgar Allan Poe and everything. But so I started out in the beginning. I was like, yeah, maybe, you know, I'll just do it my own way, whatever. When I was younger, so I wouldn't outline. I didn't really plot. I just kind of sat down and wrote. Oh, this sounds kind of cool. Discovery writing, I believe they call it, but. In the beginning of my career, and it did work, but at this point, doing this for so long, I truly believe that it is true. Because I mean, when you look at Aristotle, he talks about how the plot of a story is the most important thing.
Right.
It's the most important thing. It's not about characterization. It's not about emotions. It's about the plot. It's about you have to kind of get this plot down, because the plot is what is going to reveal all of the characteristics of the person. And
it's going to keep my attention.
Yeah, and it's got to go somewhere, you know. It really is like you have to look at it like a story is like it's like a time map. It's you know, like a regular map is in space, but in a story it's a bunch of incidents,
right,
that are heading somewhere. You know, you're heading toward something.
You're writing these scenes. So there's this journey, right? It's a map, but it's a map through time, and so you kind of have to, you know,
to go anywhere. Like if you go anywhere, you Google Map it or whatever. You know where you're going or whatever.
Right.
Well, today I guess you just say you ask Siri which way to go now. But in the past, you'd have to plot it all out on a map first. So it just seems to me like that really helps me, especially at this point, of doing this for a long period of time, to know where you're going. It's going to help you.
I wanted to ask you something, and thank you for that compliment you gave earlier. I really appreciate that. That was nice. But what I wanted to say to you is, after our last conversation, I have to admit I don't do this for every guest, but I did dive in to the Hoke Mosley series head first.
Okay.
And I was like, this stuff is great. It was really great stuff. And I kind of wonder, I don't want to ask you this question biasly, but I was like, have you ever written a character that you feel like is kind of inspired by Hoke? I don't feel like Bennett is really.
I think Gannon is a little bit more inspired by Hoke Mosley. Yeah, he's great. It's really funny because when I first decided to become a writer, I wanted to kind of plot out what kind of writer do I want to be? What do I want to write? So this was back when I was working as a doorman on Park Avenue, and right around the corner on 58th Street there was a library, and it had a mystery section. So in order to kind of figure out, let me kind of just figure out what the genre is, so to figure out where do I want to fit in here. And so I went through all these books, and so the books that kind of stood out to me as really good was Charles Willeford, Hoke Mosley, another guy Pediovich, Gerald Pediovich, who wrote To Live and Die in L.A. And there's another guy, Tom Kokonis, again, who people don't really know, but he was really good. Because it's funny, Tom Kokonis was kind of like Elmore Leonard, but kind of Quentin Tarantino before Tarantino. Because Quentin Tarantino says that he was influenced by Willeford and also Elmore Leonard, but I think he was truly influenced by this guy Tom Kokonis.
Wow. Because
it's the same sort of thing of very intense kind of violent, hard-boiled crime, and then something absolutely hilarious will happen. There's a lot of comedy in it, but it's funny. Like when you talk about again, and other single books that I really liked was there was a guy, Robert Stone, wrote a book called Dog Soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
That was the National Book Award winner of 1975, but it's really kind of it's like a hard-boiled kind of crime story about a guy smuggling heroin from Vietnam, and so I just love this book by Robert Stone, and I love Charles Willeford, and other writers like Stephen King. I was really into Stephen King, and what's wild is that when I didn't even know who these writers were, whatever, but when I looked into their background, and the one thing that they all share is that all of these guys, they're all working class people. Charles Willeford.
Oh yeah,
his parents died
very young,
and he rode the rails.
Yes.
In the Great Depression and everything. And he joined the Army when he was 16 years old because he was looking for work, and he had this crazy life. And but again, just this working class guy. And then you look at this guy Robert Stone, who wrote won the National Book Award. He was another guy who was from Brooklyn, and he spent time in an orphanage.
Wow.
And he too joined the Navy right out of this orphanage. So he had another crazy life. So you just see these guys are, had it hard. I mean, and then you look at Stephen King. Stephen King, his family was he had a hard upbringing.
Yeah. He had a hard life.
Yeah. But you see what beautiful writers these guys all ended up being I think it's because of their experiences, the reality that they lived through, really kind of, explored, how to, because again, if you look at stories like the whole hero's quest, right, where, somebody has to go out and try to make their fortune and they come from kind of humble beginnings and they triumph at something. And all of these guys as people, like Stephen King, he triumphed as a person, right? Because he came from, again, a hard scrabble upbringing, and he became one of the biggest, the biggest writer in the world.
Probably, yeah.
So he had a heroic life. So when he writes these heroic stories, I mean, this is something he's writing from his own life experience because he did accomplish something. He did, he had his experiences
I think he was
were
still drinking heavily and stuff until his early 40s, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe a little earlier than that.
Right.
He gave it up. But, I think he was.
Yeah, he had a traumatic life.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, all of these traumatic experiences, they're good for writers.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can tell you that much. I don't think I ever got as much work done until I started getting PTSD stuff. So, just, when you release a book like this and you write a book that's in this tone and kind of for this audience, how hard is it for a guy like you to get back into the Ganon? Which is a more, like I said, I always tell my friends it's like reading an action movie.
Yes,
it's got that vibe of great. Like if you're a dude that wants to get into reading more and try fiction, they're great books. They're really great.
Thank you. Yeah. How do I change gears? It helps that you don't write them at the same time. You put one down and then you pick up. It's a different story, a different kind of voice in your head or whatever. And it's funny. It's like writing a series is different than writing a standalone. It's like a movie compared to like a TV show. You go back to a familiar character, or whatever. So it's different. It's not that difficult to do. You just kind of put your head down, and after a bit, it's like riding a bike. It comes back to you.
I hate to put you on the spot, and I know I did the other day, but what's the story with that? Like, it seems like there hasn't been a Ganon for a while now.
Yeah, the next one is coming out, I believe, in August of 2024. One of the things is that because I want to do these standalones. Ideally, what I wish would happen that they would put out the Ganon because I'm writing them both very quickly, so I wish they would put out a Ganon every year because I know that the fans the fans want to know they want the book to come out in the same month, every year, and I have one a year. But because again I'm not the only author from
on the roster,
my publisher, so that there's a lot of scheduling stuff that I guess makes it where it makes it more difficult. So these things get delayed, which I do. I wish I could. If it was up to me, I'd be delivering them one a year.
Yeah.
And have a standalone.
Yeah.
And I maybe in the future we'll try to kind of get it coordinated where we have both of these things happening every year. But I know exactly what you're talking about, right? Because you do like the character and you want to see what's going to happen to him next.
And
you're waiting too long. It's like if it's a year and a half, or 2 years, it's too long.
Another thing I don't totally understand is it just seems like a long. And again, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but it does seem a little long today. And I don't know the philosophy behind this. I'm trying to plead ignorance. It's like, how does it help that the paperback won't come out until June 24? I mean, I guess they want people to buy them around the same time. I mean, that maybe they say, hey, you might want to try the last one at the same time as the new one, and I guess that's it.
Yeah.
But it would be. I have it on Audible, and I like that way, but I really like my paperback. I can read it. What I love about the paperback is it doesn't vibrate, doesn't tag you in any photos or anything like that.
Right.
Doesn't, like there's not a wallet on there charging you for stuff. You're not like monitoring your debt while you're reading a book.
There you go.
And some people, Mike, tell me a little bit about what the next couple of weeks looks like for you while this book is out. Are you back to writing something now, or are you on a steady moving around promoting the book?
I basically just finished the fourth Ganon book, and now I'm working on another standalone. So I'm kind of diving into that. I'm working on that one. So I'm doing the standalone, and then like you said, like all the time I'm taking notes and stuff about what do I want the next Ganon to be after that and blah blah. So I'm working on this other standalone.
And when you're working on like your next projects, how much of those notes do you actually reference? Do you really reference your notes, or do you just kind of note them and then it's stuck in your head? You know?
Right. It's true. I have a lot of notes that you
never read again, right?
It's funny. Yeah, different methods that I've used over time. What I do now is I've done all sorts of different things. But what I find helpful, I have an iMac computer.
Awesome.
And so I use the folders.
Nice.
You ever see the where I'll lay it all out on the big screen or whatever, and which helps me to outline. I'll use these folders and I'll take notes, like let's say like in a Microsoft Word document, whatever, and I'll put them into these folders.
Like chapter 1.
Yeah, or just notes. Yeah, just things that I kind of want to have happen, and I'll just chuck them in these folders and have them there, so I can just open up the folder and have it all like that. Because I've done it in different ways where you'll have, I started out with notebooks, but then it was like, I'd have 10 notebooks. I'd be like, where did I put this other thing? And I couldn't find it. So then I went on to having clipboards with printer paper.
Wow.
But then I got 5 or 6 clipboards. Which one is which? And my wife drives me crazy. She's like, okay, we have to clear some of the stuff out. So now I'm cluttering up my computer with the stuff. So.
When you kind of left Patterson and that kind of consistent relationship working with him,
right?
What did you think that things would go as smoothly as they have? Did you think it would have been an easier or harder transition to kind of put your name out there? Because like you said, you have 20 some odd novels. I mean, have you been really, Mike, I hate to put a number on this and be totally wrong. Are you 25 years into publishing novels now?
I started, my first novel came out in 99. But I wrote it a couple years before that, so I've been this is coming on 30 years,
Yeah, like did you feel like that you and again you may be people took me serious because I work with Patterson and that, but did you feel like it was easy enough to get out there as your own person? Because I know that even my fiance's like grandpa knows Mike Ledwidge because he's a Patterson fan,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yes,
but
that definitely helps.
But it just even aside from that, with say, all right, I'm with Patterson, but what was that transition like for you? What was it? Was it easy? Were there people lining up to deal with you? Or
well, one of the reasons why I this is always in my mind for years is to say, okay, at some point I'm gonna go back to just working on my own stuff, just to have my own vision and what have you. And so that that was always kind of the plan, the long-term plan. So did I know if it was going to be easy or hard or whatever? It didn't really matter to me. It's like I needed to do it, whether it was going to be hard or difficult. And again, I started out from nothing in the very beginning, right? Nobody knew who I was or whatever. And I just worked really hard, and I got my first novel published, and so I said to myself, you know what? Because one of the things about this job is that you have to be. It's almost like working with Patterson was great. I mean, he was such a nice guy, and also it was really fun to work with somebody at writing, to collaborate with somebody. It actually was really cool just to talk about whatever we were doing. And and I do miss that. I miss the sitting down and talking and having a meeting about stuff. But one of the things about this is that cut the net away. Yeah. I need just to do it on my own, if only just to inspire me to do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because you get lazy and whatever. You just whatever. And so with this, it's like, no, I have to get up. I have to do this. I have to. I needed to kind of put that gun to my head again.
That's
to
good.
kind of get the juices going again and try to, because again, it's been, one of the things that I just want to try to write the best book that I can, and I want to be as inspired as possible. And so it was the notion of saying, I don't want to get lackadaisical about this thing because it's, you really have to give 100%. To write a novel that people like, to write a consistent novel, to crank out 400 pages that the first page is as good as the last page is as good as the first one. It's a high level of difficulty and a high level of dedication, And so I didn't want to kind of cheat anybody or cheat myself. You know what I mean? I wanted to put 110% in, and just that challenge of just because I mean I've been so fortunate in the sense that I've been able to come up with working at a job that is basically it's like my hobby is my job. You know, because somebody actually asked me, you know, because like right now. I don't do a lot of like reading fiction for fun. You know, it's kind of a job. It's always like a challenge. So even if I'm reading something that's new or whatever, I'm always kind of analyzing it, whatever.
Right, it's tough.
Yeah, because I used to really love to read fiction. You know, just as to unwind. And so somebody said, "So how do you unwind now?" And what I figured out is that basically by working.
Jameson.
Right. But by working itself is like, you know, my hobby is my job.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky to be able to do that.
It's
you know?
really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, to get you're on a creative level, you know, in a lot of ways. You have that freedom in so many ways that, you know, definitely many people aspire to. You know what I mean? And I think that, you know, you have these situations where you've created things and they're continuing. And with The Girl in the Vault, how much of you as a writer who creates these characters at times, how much of you is like, you know, if I were to revisit, is there a way in your mind that you could somehow revisit the characters, or are they all done?
Yeah, to my mind, they're done.
Yeah, huh?
They're done, yeah. Yeah, because I just want to come up with something new.
It's an interesting on-off kind of a way that writers can look at their work. You know, it's like if you have a series, the character is sacred and it kind of has to keep going. But if it's a one-off, these characters are done. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
Beach Wedding, I don't think you're going to see the guy Burke again. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, he's done.
Right.
And it's interesting to a lot of commercial fiction writers over the years have kind of had to abandon characters because of different contractual things. I mean, somebody who comes to mind right now is Ace Atkins. I don't think he'll be doing the Quinn Coulson character anymore. I think he's got a new character.
Okay.
That's actually a reporter based in Florida is the new character.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That could be interesting for him because he was a Florida reporter at one point in Tampa, I think.
Okay.
But take us through just as is there stuff that again, you've had so much creative freedom, Mike. Is there stuff that you can't sell? Ideas that you just haven't been able to convey? Is something you ever go back to and you say, "Hey, let's try this. It's been in my head."
Not really, because I always have the kind of audience in mind, you know, because I want to write books that people are going to like, they're going to read. So, and I kind of know the genre, I know the terrain of what people like, and I want to give readers a great fun story that, you know, again, that a mass market is going to like, you know. So yeah, so it isn't like, oh no, I need to, I have some, you know, kind of out there idea that, you know, I need to share with the world. No, I want to sell them some. I want to, because my ideal, as I've always said from the beginning of this, was that I used to love fiction. When I was working as a doorman, for example, I always just wanted to have a book on the train, so I just have this, so I could escape.
Yeah,
and just to have a, you know, because people say, "Oh, that's escapist fiction," and I'm always like, you know, thank goodness.
Yeah.
You know, don't we all want to escape? Sometimes our lives can be very stressful, and to take 2 hours and just to kind of go, you know, and watch somebody else's adventure or whatever, and just to kind of take your mind off your own life. I think it's actually the purpose of art, is to be absorbed into something that where you're not thinking about your own life, and you're not thinking about the fear and the uncertainty of your own life, where you know something that's beautiful or something that's compelling that takes your attention away from yourself, and that is the pleasure of art, and that's what I try to do, and for as many people as possible.
Something that you touched on just there, I wanted to ask you because you've been so candid with us. You know, Mike, you have pretty much anybody who is listening to this show, and we'll remind you at the top of the show that Mike has written crime novels with James Patterson. He's written a standalone crime novels before that. He's very much in that crime action genre. But let me ask you, Mike, if you could give us even just a little glimpse, could you tell us a little bit about the sales of both of these books? I mean, is it overwhelmingly that there's a bigger audience for women, or does Gannon hold its own?
Definitely women buy more books.
Mm-hmm.
The Beach Wedding book did well, did better probably than Gannon. It's hard to see. Yeah, I mean, but the Gannons are doing well too.
Yeah.
Especially the first one, because in a series, people always will
gotta go back to one.
They'll go back to the first one.
Yeah.
So the Gannon.
Stop at Nothing is the first one.
Stop at Nothing is the first one, right? Yeah. So that one sells all the time.
Yeah. What's the second one?
Run for Cover.
Run for Cover,
and that's doing well too.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, people. Yeah, they like that a lot. It's funny. The third one, Hard to Break, it didn't do as well as the other two, but it did well too. You know what I mean? But yeah, but Beach Wedding definitely did well. And one of the things with that is that just in terms of marketing, whatever. Because one of the things that was cool, like working with James Patterson, was he was really good at. He really understood how to sell books and what people liked and blah blah. And he would tell me, the cover has to be good, has to be appealing. So that has a good. Again, what's great is that my daughter, my grown daughter, she's really good. She did like her high school yearbook, and she worked at Martha Stewart magazine for a while, so she knows how to do layouts and stuff like that. She's really visually very talented. So she's helped me to develop covers and things
awesome.
of this nature.
Your daughter helps you.
My
do
daughter,
that stuff.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, she's very talented, and so.
I have to ask you. I think that's such an important thing. I think about the cover of my own potential book, and I think about covers of other people's books. I've actually consulted with a guy. I kind of bounce ideas with this guy who's a great graphic designer here in town.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, a book has to look good. It has to be. You have to be able to kind of, again, just certain basic things, like you have to be able to read the title from across the room. You want to be able. It has to be nice and big and bright. I mean, to me, this is and it should have the colors have to kind of be. It has to look nice.
I mean, you have some great covers. The Quickie's a great cover. Run for Cover is a great cover.
Yeah.
Stop at Nothing is a good
It's
cover.
a good yes.
Right. Bad Connection is a fantastic cover.
Okay.
I mentioned this the last time you came. If you want to read Michael Ledwidge's first few novels, they are at Danbury Library in hardcover. All of them.
Nice.
All of them are there. It's great to hear that.
Right, because one thing, and just to say, beginning writers, if you're gonna, if you get a, good luck, you get a contract and blah blah. Definitely jump in there and have some feedback about what the cover looks like, because they'll throw it off to somebody, and because I've seen covers where I was like, I didn't like it very much.
I can't. Sometimes,
and it is important. The cover is important. The title is important. The cover is important, and so
sometimes
get involved in that.
Sometimes I think that's actually fantastic advice for a young writer. Is like, especially with some of the stuff I read here in the MFA program. If you think you have a great idea for sci-fi or fantasy, think about the whole package, because the odds are, even for myself, the odds are you may have to consider self-publishing this stuff. Some people will. Many people will have to consider that. And obviously that's not the goal. But I tell you something. The more I look on Amazon, sometimes I am really kind of like, I'm sure you worked hard on the writing, and you might not be Shakespeare, but I mean, one thing is, if the book's bad, you could still have a fantastic cover.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It should look professional.
It should look really good, like the best you can.
Right.
Mike, we're going to let you go here by asking you a question that we've asked everybody who's come on. Could you share with us just some nugget, your personal writing advice?
Okay. Personal writing advice. I'll give you a good one. If you want to kind of understand stories, especially today when people have access to film, what you should do, go find out whatever. Let's say a film is 2 hours long. Go to the midpoint of the film and look at the midpoint scene, because the midpoint scenes of really good films are so important. And I'll give you an example. In the midpoint of the film Fatal Attraction, where there's a scene where the Michael Douglas character is meeting the crazy Glenn Close character, and they're in Grand Central Station or somewhere, and just all the visual stuff that they do with it, where you'll see that. So Michael Douglas is walking with Glenn Close, and they're walking down like a corridor in Grand Central Station, and Glenn Close, the camera's looking at him from the back, and Glenn Close is in front of her. She's like standing on a dark background, and she has like this kind of crazy looking hair, and Michael Douglas is walking alongside like a brightly lit area, and there's people talking on the phone. So it's like he's like this domestic thing. And she's kind of like, and there's people moving around where Glenn Close is. So she's like chaos. He's like order. And then finally in the very middle scene, it shows Michael Douglas is, you see Michael Douglas's face, and behind him is a poster on the wall. And it's like a Scotch ad or something like that. And it's a wedding. And it's like a bride and a groom, or whatever. So it's like he's standing against with this wedding thing, because it's all about how he's going to protect his family. And she's seen from the back, and she's standing against a black background, and she looks kind of like a monster. And this is just in the middle of the film, and that's just one. You can go to so many different films and just look at, just go right in the exact middle, mathematically, and see that scene. There's always there's a pivot that the people put in that is really, really interesting.
And I think that leads into a great piece of writing advice that I think you probably agree with. You have to read and write a lot of what you want to write. Like before you really write, I mean, like I think it's like understanding how a story finds its pace like that.
Right.
That ultimately is going to make you a better writer. There's all different types of writing. One thing, it sounds crazy maybe to a novelist or something. It took me I'm a journalist 20 years. It really took me a long time to master the newspaper style of thing.
Right.
Because I started with the magazines. So the magazines was like waste words, paint this at times flowery picture or grim picture, or whatever you want to do. Just paint it because you have 5,000 words to spend. But when you're doing a story in 1,800 words in a newspaper, it's a completely different task.
Right.
And my early days of trying to write those 1,800, they would come out at 3,500 words. I just didn't know how to do it.
Okay, right.
I didn't know how to get it down.
Condense it.
And it's literally now it's almost more like writing a poem. Because the paragraph is one sentence sometimes in a newspaper. You ever read a newspaper story? A paragraph is one sentence.
That's right.
1.5 sentences.
It's sped up.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
And so it's just I want
people's attention spans are less.
And that's one of the last things I'll close on. Mike, did you ever at a time seek out any outside of Manhattan College, where you were an alumnus of, and James Patterson also attended? Did you ever seek out any formal class of writing? Any? No, huh?
No. Just because it just came from reading.
And working with Patterson was like being in an MFA program for real for how many years?
Yeah, it was like having a writing coach.
Yeah.
Because I'd send him the stuff that we were working on, and he'd say, "Okay, ixnay this, more of this." You know what I'm saying? So you could, and again, he had the kind of just like an editor at a newspaper or something like that, where you hand in, okay, I want this, okay, cut this part out, leave this, more of that, whatever. So it was good. Did
you ever have, just out of curiosity, did you ever have any other coach or anybody else you worked with or sent stuff to, a writer? No?
Not only when I was first starting out.
No.
I sent some stuff. There was a kind of cool, famous guy. His name was this guy. His name was Father Malachi Martin.
Okay, yeah.
And he was a friend of a friend, and he's a Jesuit priest who wrote thriller novels about the Vatican.
Wow.
And he's very well known in conspiracy circles.
Wow.
Because he did a lot of stuff. He used to be on radio shows in the 80s, talking about the popes, and because he was the right-hand man of one of the popes.
Wow.
And he kind of grew up in the Vatican and blah, blah, blah. And yes, anyway, a friend of a friend sent him pages for my first novel, and he was actually nice enough. He actually came to my job. I was working on Park Avenue as a doorman.
Wow.
And he actually showed up at my job, and he encouraged me. He said, Mike, I try to get you an agent, but my agent's retiring or something. He said, but I totally encourage you to seek publication, because I think you really, the stuff you sent me is great, so.
Mike, thanks so much
You got
again
it.
for visiting us on Public Reading Club. The book is The Girl in the Vault. It's out now on any bookstore, and the best place to get it would be the Booksmiths in Danbury, Connecticut. You can call down there. I'm sure there might be some signed copies left over there.
Yeah, I think so.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great. It's the book is out now from HarperCollins.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
HarperCollins.
Mike, thanks again for coming in.
Yeah.
You're always welcome to come in, and I really, really want you to come in when the next Gannon book comes out, because that would be fun for me.
All right.
Mike,
You
thanks
got
so
it.
much, pal.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
So there you have it. Really a fantastic time having Michael Ledwidge with us. It's really humbling that Mike has listened to the show. I know he's a fan of Lawrence Block and Peter Blauner and other people that have appeared on the show, and it's really great. I'm going to have Mike on again as long as we can keep doing this show while I'm here at WestCon. I am going to continue to do it, and I'm going to have Mike on again when his latest novel in the Michael Gannon series comes out. It's a fun kind of a little over the top at times, but it's like reading an action movie. And if you want to break away from all the seriousness of the world and kind of the redundancy of television, there's something a little different out there in the Gannon series, and I'd love to have him on. But again, feel free to check out the Girl in the Vault, because it's a fantastic read. Mike is really a master of that genre now, and it would be fantastic to one day have him come to speak to students here at WestCon, hopefully some of my students. As I guess I should put in this episode, if you listen to the show, I will be teaching here at Western Connecticut State. I will be handling Professor John Roach, who's a fantastic writer himself. I will be handling Professor John Roach's sports writing class, and that what really is, it's very humbling for me, and I hope to have a lot of good guests and a lot of good conversations. So if you listen to the show and you want to visit class, or you want to come in when there's a guest speaker, contact me and I'll make sure it's okay, and you can do so. Again, this is Public Reading Club. I am your host, Matt Caputo, with my co-producer and engineer here, Patrick Frenette. Thank you for joining us for episode 13 with Michael Ledwidge. So thanks again, and we'll be back soon, hopefully before December's over. There'll be one more episode, but in the early new year, we have a lot of good stuff on tap. So please keep checking in. The Instagram will continue to get updated, and we hope to have one more episode before the year ends. Thank you so much to everyone and anyone who's checked out this show.
Public Reading Club is a production of WXCI 91.7 Danbury Radio, hosted by Matt Caputo and produced by Pat Frenette and Matt Caputo.